You know what would make that better? A cup of White Cane coffee.
Wow, that really is great coffee.
White Cane coffee, because every cup makes a difference.
It's not just about music lessons. It's about hard work, perseverance, dedication, self-expression, making memories. Let's make memories together.
Welcome into the cafe as White Cane Coffee presents Coffee and a Conversation. White Cane Coffee Cafe is open in the plaza across from Tops. Stop in, get yourself a fresh cup. Got me some breakfast blend today. You can also get a scone, a cinnamon roll, maybe a breakfast burrito. And yes, pumpkin spice products are available now at the White Cane Coffee Cafe. Stop in, pick out your favorite pumpkin spice. Say hi to the friendly folks here at White Cane. If you don't want to deal with the construction downtown, that's no problem. White Cane Coffee is also available on DoorDash. Just place your order, have your favorites delivered right to your door. You can also order your favorite roast to brew at home online at whitecanecoffee.com. This is Coffee and a Conversation. Our special guest this week, Shawn Jones, in North Warren Volunteer Fire Department. Shawn, thanks so much for taking some time with us today.
Absolutely.
And, I think it's no secret that volunteer fire departments are hurting for volunteers all over the place. So how long, you mentioned before we went on the air here, you were a career firefighter. How long have you been a firefighter, both career and volunteer?
Since August of 1995, so 29 years I've been in the fire service total. 18 of that with the city of Warren, all those years with North Warren, 29 years since.
And so what was it about firefighting that pulled you in? Why did you want to become a firefighter?
Actually, I had no real ties. My parents had volunteered for the Youngsville Volunteer Fire Department when I was a kid. But when I moved to North Warren, I really had no idea who anybody was. I come from a farming background. When I left the farm, really had nothing better to do. So I said, well, let's go down and see what this is about. And just blew up from there.
And I mean, so obviously a good decision on your part if you stuck with it for so long.
I agree. Yeah, it was. It led to a lot of doors opening for me in my career paths. Things that you see and do, people you meet within the service. You can't speak enough of it, in my opinion.
And is it almost like, obviously people speak in terms of military service being like a band of brothers. I mean, but it's that kind of thing carries over, with firefighting. And
absolutely. There's a camaraderie. I mean, people like to say that we're a paramilitary organization, and to some degree, only in maybe some rank structure and things, but the camaraderie, the being with the guys and girls, females that are within the service, there is a bond there. And, you don't really realize that until things, incidents get hairy, or you realize who's got your back, and it's those guys that you're with.
I mean, so it's almost like being in a foxhole, right? When you go to a fire, you've got to trust and know that the guy behind you is looking out for you, and you're looking out for him.
Exactly. There's really no way to describe that unless you've been there. But yeah, that does sum it up.
So tell me, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in firefighting over the last 29, almost 30 years now since you first started?
In firefighting, it changes constantly. There's always new technology, new things that come up. But if you really look at the fire service as a whole, we kind of come full circle with a lot of things. Back in the 50s and 60s, nozzle types and things were, it was only smooth bores, and there was no such thing as fog nozzles. And now, then during the late 80s into the 90s, it became a huge thing to go to fog nozzles. But now we're coming back to that day of smooth bores. Yeah. There's been a lot of safety improvements. Our turnout gear equipment, that is really helped, guys be able to go deeper, but sometimes to a fault. Yeah. So yeah, there's been a lot of changes within there. Equipment for sure, apparatus, lot of that has changed. But like I said, we don't change a lot because in this service, change comes hard.
Right.
There's a lot of tradition.
And so you mentioned some of the technology changes, and especially maybe from that volunteer service perspective, how much of a benefit has that been? Are you're not necessarily just relying on the whistle and guys with phones on their person all the time, right? Maybe do you maybe get a bigger response than previously, or a faster response because guys are getting that word sooner?
Not necessarily. We're technologically, we have their pagers, phones. We still run in North Warren. We have a siren on top of the building. Unfortunately, in this day and age, people are working more. And it's not like it used to be where businesses would just allow you to go. And it's society. Even in my line of work now, people depend on you to be there at a certain time. There's not a lot of other people to pick up that slack. So, just leaving on a whim, it doesn't happen like it used to. When I first got into service back in the early 90s, mid 90s, to make an engine, you really had to hustle.
Yeah.
Now we're waiting on guys, and our volunteers in North Warren, we're spread out pretty wide. A lot of our members live in the city. So we still have to wait for them to respond. We still have a 6-minute response time is on average getting out the door. Some days are better than others,
Right.
But it just all depends on the time of day and who's available.
And now, is that the biggest change that you've seen from the volunteer side of things? Is just the number of people who are volunteering and the way that they're able to get to calls?
Yeah. There's the sense of community isn't as strong as what I feel it used to be, where, if somebody heard the fire siren and, you're just going to drop everything and go.
Right.
Family time takes precedence on that. We all have, we're going in 12 different directions seemingly.
Yeah.
If you look back to the days when things were simpler, we only had one person in the household that was working.
Right.
Now it's almost guaranteed that both of them are working. If you have children, they're going sports and other activities, so you're constantly on the go. And now we still need to take time to go to training and this and that. There was a lot back in the day too that, it wasn't as mandated a training. Not that you didn't do it in house,
Right.
But the government or the state didn't require as much as they do now. Some good, some bad, in my opinion, but it takes a lot of time to become a fireman, firefighter now. So to pull yourself away from your family, from your job, and say, I'm going to commit to this, it's way more difficult.
Well, and like you said, the attitude maybe has changed also from, businesses and corporations of, like you said, it used to be, okay, the siren's going, oh, you're a volunteer firefighter, go ahead and go. Whereas now maybe do they really need you? Do you have to be there? Can somebody else go?
Right. Yeah. And then, you have to look at it as people say, what happens if nobody responds? Well, those days are here.
Yeah.
It happens. And, you don't ever want that to happen, but it's a reality that, this day and age.
Well, and I would think too, given our current economic climate, right? Prices are still, inflation may be down, but prices are still up. I was just at the grocery store the other day and came away with a half a cart full of stuff, and $165 later, I was out the door. And, I would think that's probably a factor too, especially, if the siren goes off when somebody's, at their job, is, can I afford to go?
Right. There's that aspect to it. Can I afford to go? But the other side to it is, look at most companies, look at most jobs today. They're having a difficult time hiring.
Yeah.
Now in the volunteer service, we're asking you to come and potentially, and I don't like to say put your life on the line, but we're asking you to go and do some pretty dangerous things for free.
Yeah.
It's a hard sell to especially the younger generation, and I can include my son in that aspect of, they're all looking at, well, what's in it for me? And there is that sense of pride and belonging to an organization, that you can't necessarily, in my opinion, put a monetary amount to. But where those people seem to be aging out of the service,
Right.
And I for one don't quite know how to stem that.
Yeah.
that
Well,
time.
like you said, I mean, it's not like you're just going out for a little walk down the bike trail or something.
Right.
I mean, it's fire, right? There's a potential for danger. They said don't play with fire is what they tell people. So,
and if you're, again, this is my opinion, but you're going to do this job, you need to want to do it to the nth degree. So, yeah, that means putting yourself in harm's way, and it's inherently dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
There's, people get injured doing it every day. People that do everything right still die.
Yeah,
and that's just part of this type of job, whether it's career or volunteer. Fire doesn't care.
Right.
So, you need to be on your game. You need to know what how to read fire, how to do different things within it, and try to stay as safe as possible.
Right. Well, and like you said, I mean, you could do everything right, and all of a sudden you just take a bad step, and
Right.
if you're on the second floor or something, the floor gives away, or any of those kind of things could happen, and it's not, like you said, it's not necessarily that you did something wrong,
Correct.
but again, it's fire and it's dangerous.
Murphy's Law shows up
Yeah.
at any time.
Excuse me. And so you mentioned the training and how it's gotten a little more extensive. If somebody wanted to be a volunteer firefighter, what kind of training would they have to go through? Right? I mean, it's not like you can just show up at the North Warren Fire Department and say, "Hey, I want to be a volunteer," and all right, here's a hose, go at it.
Right. Yeah. So, in the state of Pennsylvania, it is not necessarily required, but it is highly suggested to take the Essentials of Firefighting program. And that program is now broken up into 4 different modules, spread out. If they did all 4 at one time, it's going to take about 6 months to do. 2 days a week kind of thing, a weekday and a weekend. But now they've broken it up into modules. So those that don't necessarily want to go fight fire, they can be in support roles, on the outside, more or less, learn how to throw ladders, clean up hose or move hose, or from the exterior aspect of it. And then in the 3rd and 4th module, they move more into the interior firefighting aspect. So if somebody wanted to come up and learn, the other side to it is that we do a lot of in-house training. If we can document that, and we do this sometimes, we'll document the training that we do. We can submit that to the state, and they can help to get their certification through that way. But it's not, you're absolutely right. It's not like you just show up to Firehouse and we just let you,
Right.
ride out and hope that it's going to go well.
Yeah. Here's a hose, have at it, and don't die.
Right. Don't die.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. This is Coffee and a Conversation presented by White Cane Coffee here on Your Daily Local.
You know what would make that better? A cup of White Cane coffee.
Wow, that really is great coffee.
White Cane coffee, because every cup makes a difference.
It's not just about music lessons. It's about hard work, perseverance, dedication, self-expression, making memories. Let's make memories together.
Back into the cafe as White Cane Coffee presents Coffee and a Conversation. We are right here in the White Cane Coffee Cafe, which is open in the plaza across from Tops, all through this construction downtown. Stop in, get yourself a fresh cup, maybe a delicious baked good. Say hi to the friendly folks here at White Cane, which is also available on DoorDash and online at whitecanecoffee.com. Brian Hagberg here with you on Your Daily Local. Our special guest this week, Shawn Jones of North Warren Volunteer Fire Department. And, Shawn, we were talking about how people can get involved. Are there ways that people can be volunteers with the volunteer fire department without actually going out and fighting fires? And if so, how could they do that?
Yeah. So within our organization, and many is similar to ours, we run functions or events throughout the year that need background help. As far as set up, tear down. Being part of that being part of that event, selling tickets or whatever it is to help raise money for us throughout the year. In North Warren, we do a chicken barbecue every year in the spring. We also run two a spring and a fall comedy show. Those all take people to cook food and anything, any kind of help along that route is always good, because nowadays most firemen or firefighters within any organization, and most any organizations for that matter, they're not only we're running the calls, but they're doing all the background stuff. They're in the biggest commodity that anybody has right now is time. So if somebody was willing to come down and say, well, what can I do? I'm very good at writing grants or administrative aspects. I just want to come down and help clean up the station. I mean, I know it sounds menial and that kind of thing, but those are the things that if you don't want to go running into a burning building, great, that's fine. But if you still have that feeling or sense of what can I do to help, those are the things that we can look to. We're always looking for people that have different ideas, for raising funds. None of the equipment that we purchase right now is cheap.
No.
We just did a major purchase for air cylinders and air packs for that over $80,000 for 12. That's coming out of the funds that we've raised or we've received from donations throughout the last year or so. It's getting harder and harder. Apparatus costs have skyrocketed. The average age that is recommended for an apparatus is 20 years. But at $750,000 to $1 million for a purchase, most organizations can't do that. So we rely on grants. We rely on funding from the federal or state level, and we have to have somebody that's willing to do that. So
but grant writing is not easy. I mean, it is a special skill to write grants that are actually going to get you the grant money.
Correct. Yeah, and it's gotten harder through the years because everybody is in that same boat. Everybody's writing a grant for something, just to stay operating. But who's going to do it? Who has the time to sit down and look at it and say, I can do this for you? But the same thing goes for just cleaning a station. It's difficult or as easy as that sounds. We come back from a run or we're out on drill. The last thing some guys want to do at 9, 10 o'clock at night. Okay, now we got to scrub the floors. Right. And do I say? I mean, it's not our place isn't dirty. It's just things get dusty, that kind of thing. We always want to try to show that sense of pride. We never. So I guess we took for granted for a lot of years. We had a lot of retirees within the organization. They used to be very active, and they started to take on those lesser roles. Right. But as the years passed, they passed on. Just weren't able to do it any longer, and now we're seeing that. We relied on them so much.
Right.
And
people are having to work longer. You mentioned retirees, and it's we're at a point in time now where it's not all right. I'm 65. I'm retiring. Out I go. And a lot of people are working until they're 70, 75 years old, and that makes it harder for them to then move into those.
Right. And then just not even that, but they're working longer hours throughout the day.
Yeah.
So you work a 8, 10, 12-hour day on a regular basis with no real days off because of kids and family and things. Well, it's not what time you have to get. But yeah, so there's always a spot for somebody within the organization. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to ride out on the apparatus. There's other ways to help out. And what I would suggest is to anyone, you go to your local volunteer service and say, just simply ask, what can I do? How can I help? And if, there's always something for someone to do.
And so, obviously you've been involved in the volunteer service for, again, almost 30 years now. What are the biggest challenges from your perspective that are facing volunteer fire services right now?
It's simply that it's manpower. Most departments, we have the equipment, we have the apparatus. We need the bodies and people that are willing to ride out on them. It's everybody's heard of most recently the EMS aspect here in Warren County, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. And it comes down to if I don't respond, who will?
Right.
And those days are here. It's not like it used to be that if I called 911, I'm guaranteed somebody's going to show up. Somebody will.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Right.
And unfortunately, incidents or fires don't tell us when they're going to happen. So if it's daytime,
it's not like you can just say, all right, I'm going to be here 9 to 5, and fire happened overnight. Well, I wasn't off the clock.
Right. And there's some places even throughout the Commonwealth here, they do have people that are, they're busy enough, and they have the people in the area. We're pulling from a small community, small bucket, if you will, of people able to do this type of work or willing to do this type of work, and we're asking them to do it for free.
Yeah.
So, we're not Allegheny County or down near Philadelphia, places like that, where you have a larger pool of people to gather from. We're pretty limited here.
And so, within those limitations, are there, like any kind of residency requirements, right? Like, so in a county like ours, where there's volunteer fire stations all throughout the county, if somebody wants to join North Warren, but say they live in Starbrook, is that an issue? Like, would they have to go join Starbrook, or could they do that, or how does that work?
We don't ever. We're not going to turn somebody away necessarily because where they work or where they live.
Mm-hmm.
If they adamantly want to join our department, I will say, look, you have a department that's closer to you.
Mm-hmm.
That would maybe make more sense if that's what you want to do. Just because time is of the essence.
Yeah.
If I'm waiting for somebody to come up over the hill to respond at an apparatus, time is of the essence. So, we're going to steer them towards our closest department. But we have some dual memberships within our department, people that live in our town or live in North Warren but are a member of another department. Mm-hmm. We account for that. We allow for that. There's a lot of our members that live in the city limits and still respond to North Warren Station. If it's somebody that was long distance, we're not going to turn you away for that aspect. But again, we're going to guide you towards your closer departments.
Well, it makes it obviously, because like you say, response time is a factor, and if you're, if you're living at Starbrook and trying to respond to something at, say, the mall, it's going to take you a little while to get there.
And I think some people don't honestly know who is, especially in a more rural area. I mean, if you live in Sugar Grove, you pretty much know who's responding to Sugar Grove.
Right.
But here in our closer proximity with North Warren, Glade, Pleasant, Starbrook, even Clarendon to some degree with that, and the city itself, maybe somebody doesn't realize who exactly it is they're coming to. Oh, you can always stop into the fire station. On North Warren, we're always there. Somebody's always there at around 7:30 on Wednesday nights. That's our drill night. So somebody's always going to be at the station. If you had any questions or inquiries.
And so, do you find that there's almost a competition for bodies with as many areas that need to staff firehouses as there are, especially within our county, or is it more of a cooperative effort of, hey, we've got X amount of guys here. If you need somebody, let us know. We can send them your way.
No, I guess I wouldn't say there's any kind of competition in that regard. Nobody. Well, I can't even imagine. But we rely on mutual aid so much now, and automatic aid. Whereas when I first got into service, back in, like I said, the mid '90s, it was rare, maybe not as rare, but to call mutual aid into a small fire. Whereas now, we're maybe calling 3, 4, 5 departments at a time to, give us the manpower. We don't necessarily need the equipment; we need the manpower to run the equipment. So, competition amongst the departments as far as bodies goes, everybody's in the same boat. I feel that everybody's having some degree of difficulty with, whatever time of day it is that their department has issue of trying to maintain a viable crew.
And like you said, has that led to more of a mutual aid response? I know, for example, the fire that was at Label Shop earlier this year. You guys were there. Glade was there. Russell and Scandia. I want to say, by my count, there were 8 or 9 different departments there.
Yeah.
Is that more typical now to see that kind of response than it was when you first started?
Absolutely. So, in that case, there that day, that was that's what we considered a commercial incident.
Okay.
So, we have run assignments or alarm box alarms for that because of the type of building and the type of construction. We really load up the mutual aid aspect to that. So yeah, on a commercial type job like that, you're going to see 8 to 10 departments potentially responding, and then if it with the potential for an increase, if it were to get worse. Typical residential, at least speaking for North Warren, you may see 4 to 5 departments being dispatched for that. So.
And so we were kind of chatting a little bit right before we went on air. Obviously, been to a lot of fires, I'm sure, over your career. What are some of the differences in the approach that firefighters take? You just mentioned that label shopper was considered a commercial fire versus a residential. As far as things that you have to be on the lookout for, right? So, like, I had mentioned to you that fire at Warren Tire Center a few years ago. Obviously, you've got additional hazardous things there with the oil and tires and things of that nature. So what is the difference in approach between those two?
There's really, upon dispatch, we're going to take into account the type of building, the type of structure, whether it be residential, commercial, some of the large scale layouts versus smaller scale with the residential. But quite frankly, the biggest thing is, our job is life and property. And how do we mitigate that in the safest way possible? In my opinion, that's from trying to get in the interior and doing the searches, get in and knock the fire down. Some incidents are predisposed before it's even dispatched. That there's times it's just there's nothing that we're going to do. We're going to save this. Look at the places around it that we can save.
Right.
And try to do that, as in the case of, say, Warren Tire.
Right. Yeah.
And every incident, from what people store in their homes today, as to what they used to, it's just, we don't know until we get there a lot of times. And we can pre-plan and we do, or especially in our commercial buildings, at least the layout and, what type of hazards we may be coming up against. But on the residential side, it's not something that we do regularly unless
Right.
somebody has something specific that they want us to know about.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I've got a store of 300 cases of 22 bullets down in this
Right.
room that are gonna.
They don't
Yeah.
tell us that. There's certain things that we do take into account. The biggest thing though is life. My biggest pet peeve with commercials, the Walmarts, the Lowe's, and places like that are open for large amounts of people, is people not necessarily respecting a fire alarm.
Yeah.
So how many times have you been in a store to hear a fire alarm and you don't evacuate? Well, now we're coming in with limited resources already,
Right.
and again, my first job, yes, I potentially have an incident that I have to deal with, but my first goal is to get the people out. So it's a mindset, because most people, if I don't see something, I don't smell something, I'm probably okay. And that's all well and good until it's not.
Yeah. Does that carry over in some ways to residential though? Like, do you find that people maybe take longer than they should when leaving their homes? Because I know, obviously people have smoke alarms go off and they'll go off all the time, and you go up and your first inclination is, why is that going off? Right?
Yeah. Smoke alarms in a residential setting, most times, people are, again, if they see a little bit of smoke, or they're calling 911, they're getting out for the most part. We don't typically see that too much in the residential aspect, but more on the commercial side.
Oh, excuse me. And so again, if somebody wanted to come out and join you guys out at North Warren, how would they go about doing that? Especially to get started.
Like I said, on every Wednesday night is our drill nights. We're open every night or that time. stop in, meet some of the members. We have applications readily available. Talk to the members. Ask any questions that you may inquire. But yeah, on every Wednesday night, somebody's going to be there. We have a comedy show coming up at that time. That's going to be, I believe, in the end of October, first part of November. We're always looking for people if they have want to ask for an application. They can do that time too. But yeah, and most departments they have you can look online, find their phone number, and get a hold of somebody through that way.
And you guys, obviously not necessarily staffed there 24/7, but if somebody called, you have an answering service.
Unfortunately, we do not. This day and age now with cell phones, and the landline, if you will, has kind of gone by the wayside. Yeah. But the best way to do it is to stop down. Yeah. And see what we're about.
Wednesdays at 7:30.
Wednesdays at 7:30 is the best time. See what we're about. Ask questions. Meet the cast of characters that are there. And I say characters because there's a lot of different. There's a lot of different type of people there. So.
Well, it's no different than in your neighborhood, right? Yep. Not everybody's the same, and that's part of what makes it great.
Exactly, it's what makes it go around. Exactly. There is, we try to do a lot of community involvement things. For the kids for Fire Prevention Week here coming up. We helped Tonawanda PD with a bike rodeo back in June. So we try to be interactive as much as possible with the community.
All right, Shawn, we won't take up too much more of your time. I appreciate you again stopping down and chatting with us and letting everybody know what the volunteer fire service is all about. And thank you again for volunteering your time to be part of that community that's help keeping our friends and neighbors safe. So we appreciate that very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that will wrap it up for Coffee and a Conversation presented by White Cane Coffee this week. Tune in every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. as White Cane Coffee presents Coffee and a Conversation. For Shawn Jones, this is Brian Hagberg on Your Daily Local saying thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.
You know what would make that better? A cup of White Cane coffee.
Wow, that really is great coffee.
White Cane coffee, because every cup makes a difference.
It's not just about music lessons. It's about hard work, perseverance, dedication, self-expression, making memories. Let's make memories together.